good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you may be tuning into the Growing Our Future podcast. We just appreciate so much that technology's allowed us to have a platform like this where we can bring guests on and they can share their insights, their experiences, their expertise. And then we get to put it on this incredible platform so it can be listened to around the world. And, it all really comes back to this point. I like to always say if agriculture's taught me anything, it's taught me if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Well, how do you grow the future? You got to plant the right seeds. And that's
That's right.
what we do with our guests. And so it is an honor. I've been excited about bringing this man back. He's been part of our leadership series before, but we're now bringing him back officially on the podcast. And I am honored. I've had a front row seat to this man's career. It has been an honor to watch him grow personally, professionally, and I'm excited for y'all to get to meet him today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Arquimides Reyes. Is it Dr. Reyes?
Dr. Reyes could work. Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Reyes, he earned it. Thank you for
Yes,
joining
sir.
us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, like I said, we're going to dig in deeper and we're going to talk about, kind of where and how you ended up where you're at. And I knew that he was a doctor. I just wanted to make sure that I had it correct because let me tell you something. I suspect they didn't just hand it to him. Something tells me that he earned it. And I know his family's proud of him. I'm proud of him. And so I wanted to make sure that I got that title exactly right. So, Archimedes, I'm going to call you Archimedes through the day, but just know
Yes, sir.
there's no disrespect to your being Dr. S, but
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
here we go. So every guest gets the same question, the same first question, and that is, what are you grateful for today?
I think that's a good question. And, there's a lot of things to be grateful for, but today I'm grateful for my family. To me, they're my foundation and they're my constant source of support. Okay, when I need it the most, they're always there for me. I'm also grateful to God for the blessings and guidances that have strengthened me, that have shaped me to make me who I am, basically lead me through this journey. I'm also thankful for the opportunities to teach the students and to mentor the future generation of agriculture. That's something that fills my bucket. And I guess I'm also grateful for organizations like the Future Farmers of America who instilled a purpose, a passion for agriculture in my life, and I think is doing that for others.
And we've got to do a whole podcast, and I could just stop right there. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think there's anything greater than family. I don't think anybody, I had a kid the other day ask me this. I thought this was pretty good. I was down in Area 3, Houston area. And I had a kid ask me, how important is faith to leadership? That's a good question.
It's a
And
good question.
I just
Yeah,
told him this. I said, name the most famous people you could name in athletes and movie stars and in business and entertainment. And they named all these famous people. And I said, now name me just one of them, just one that makes their own heart beat every day. And I said, if you don't
that's
have a little faith,
that's
you,
right.
you really might not find your purpose, but a little faith, family, friends, a purpose, passion for what we do, and a recognition that we stand on the shoulders of somebody that went before us.
That's true. Yes, sir.
And you outlined all of that in a very simple introduction. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, sir. It means a lot, to say that family, God, and friends, right? And your foundation for growth and success, and you have to be able to utilize them.
I agree. I agree. I wouldn't have been where I was at right now if it hadn't been for all those things.
Yes, sir.
So let's dive in here.
Alrighty.
I remember this young man when he was a much younger man, and he was volunteer in our foundation ambassador program.
That's right.
And I got to know him. And then the more I learned about his story, the more inspired I was by his grit, his resiliency, his focus on the future, his adaptability. There's just so many things that come to mind when I think of Archimedes' story, but I don't want to tell it. I want y'all to hear it. So Archimedes, I want you to take us back, and we're going to get to where you're at today. Today, you're a professor, you're an associate professor of animal science at the University of Wisconsin in River Falls. That's a long way. That's just North Texas. I mean, that's just on the north part of Texas. No,
The north part of Texas, that's right.
several states away, and you're doing great things there. But I think that your story is one, in my opinion, of the most inspiring stories I've been privy to in my time in the FFA and in working with students. And so take us back and tell us, how did you end up? I think you were Lake Travis. Is that correct? High school or Lanier? Lanier.
No, no, Lanier High School at the time. They
Lanier.
changed his
So
name. Yeah,
you,
yes,
you
sir.
you were Lanier there in Austin, but take us back to how you came to Lanier, kind of how you found your way into FFA and agricultural science, and kind of what happened next.
Yeah, I guess, my life started, my journey started in a small country in El Salvador. At the time, and still probably now, it's considered a third world country where agriculture was a way of life. So I grew up in a small dairy and beef farm, working alongside my grandparents. But growing up, that was the job of the poor. I didn't want to do farming when I came to the United States. That's something that I was like, hey, I want to be a businessman. I want to wear a suit. I want to go to a boardroom. I want to be successful in life and have some money in my pocket. And to me at the time, I thought that that was going to fill my bucket. And and it was hard to picture myself going back to farming because I knew how hard it was. But once I came to the United States, I had different opportunities to be able to work alongside my dad, who was a construction worker. And then I realized that I needed to go to school rather than just keep working because that was also hard work, respectful work, but it was pretty tough. And I said to myself, maybe there's something else there for me. And so I decided got enrolled in high school, and I had the opportunity to meet an incredible ag teacher, Mr. Tracy Cortez. He has been a foundation, a rock in my life and my success. And I get a little teary sometimes when I talk about him because he means a lot to me. And so he saw in me what I didn't see in myself at the time. And he encouraged me to just do more. He encouraged me to lead. He encouraged me to be competitive. And more importantly, he helped me find my voice and my values. And so I got to Texas, to Central Texas, when I was 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. And I had the opportunity to learn alongside Mr. Tracy Cortez as I started and I joined FFA. Still didn't want to do agriculture, okay? So I started wanting to do something else, and he encouraged me to pursue my dreams. And as I pursued those dreams, I ended up finding myself back into animal science. It's where I felt the comfort of home. It's where I felt like I belong. And I was able to see through the FFA that there was future in agriculture. It was more than just a poor man's job. You're feeding the world and you're doing it as ethically as possible and as responsible as possible, utilizing all the resources that God has provided us. And it's just a story that's guided me through the days and it's taken me every day I look back and I said, hey, here's where I came from. I can't forget it and I need to go back to it. And so it's hard, right? But through the opportunity of joining our local FFA chapter, I was able to develop a deep respect for raising animals. I raised pigs and I raised goats. And so that helped me understand more of how cattle and how animals and how livestock and how things were being raised in this country and the importance of feeding the world and feeding everybody around you. And all of that led me to pursue an animal science career. And eventually, I was able to pursue a master's in animal science with an emphasis in meat science and a PhD at Colorado State University with meat science and ruminant nutrition focus. And so it's just a little bit of everything, I guess. I don't know if I cover most of the questions, but my journey's been long from going to Lanier FFA and being part of the local chapter to joining the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M and becoming a leader.
Yep.
I was able to grow in there, and I think I went to one of our meetings was when I was already in the Corps of Cadets. when you bought me my first plane ticket. I remember that. And I flew from Amarillo. I was there doing some dairy science education, and I flew from Amarillo to Dallas, and that was an experience. My first flight. We went to meet with one of the donors, La Quinta, one of the sponsors. I remember that very, very vividly. And so from there, you learn to lead, you learn to grow, you learn to succeed, and then you rely on those friends that you have that open the doors for you and for guidance. And so I always call my act teacher, I always call those friends when I have questions of life. Am I doing this right? What would you do in my case? And so that's a little bit about my life.
Well, it's an incredible story, and I don't know. Can I throw some other details in there because
Yeah,
I
yeah, go
really
ahead. Yes,
I really admire. Everybody's got a story, by the way, Archimedes. Everybody, and
yes, sir.
not everybody shares their story. And what they don't understand is that God gives us our story because God knows there's going to be somebody just like us
That's
that
right.
needs to hear that story.
Yes,
And
sir.
and we never know when that's going to happen. But I understand that when you first came here, that as you started in elementary and middle school, that you struggled with the dialect of English,
That's
um,
right.
and maybe didn't get the full attention of teachers that maybe you could have used, but you didn't slow down. You just persevered right through that, and because you persevered through it, the teacher said, "Hey, y'all really need to take note of this young man." And even at that moment, they couldn't quite fully grasp just how talented you were, not only academically, but how driven you were to succeed. And I understand that there was a very pivotal point when you entered high school where you could have very easily chosen to drop out of school, but it was that
Yes,
art
sir.
teacher.
It was one of those moments I remember, like I mentioned before, I come still consider myself, middle class, right? So I grew up in a very poor family, um, and we needed to work to make ends meet. And so I was part of the working force in my household. And I remember working and realizing, hey, I'm making money if I quit school and I work an extra 8 hours a day, I'm going to make this much more money. My mom doesn't have to have a second job. Maybe if I work an extra 8 hours a week, my dad doesn't have to have a second job. And so there's always a thought and question in my head, can I do more so my parents do less, right? Because they're getting old. It's my time to provide.
Mm, mm,
And it came to that moment where I thought about dropping out. And again, Mr. Cortez was so pivotal in that moment where he basically promised me a little bit of income if I were to stay for 6 weeks. And I remember that very vividly. And that led me to racing my first goat, going to the county fair and making a little bit of money. And then my life changed. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would still be working in the same job that I was working in high school because that's all I knew what to do. And so, but no, it was definitely an experience.
So I come into this story and I find this young man and he becomes a foundation ambassador. And as you've already heard, he's a workhorse. And he got in there and he worked with our sponsors and he did an incredible job. And then the thing that I'll never forget, Archimedes, I'll never forget it, is I remember I was at the Bob Bullock History Museum down by the state capitol, and
Yes,
they were
sir.
doing the Rodeo Austin Scholarship Awards. And I'm sitting over here and I'm watching all this because we had a bunch of FFA kids getting scholarships. And all of a sudden, they put the microphone up to the sky. And the words I'll never forget. I never forgot it. Archimedes said, "My name is Archimedes Reyes. I'm graduating valedictorian of my class. I'm going to go to Texas A&M. I'll be in the Corps Cadet, and I'm going to become an ag teacher and keep kids in school just like me, just like
That's
my
right. Yes,
ag
sir.
teacher did." And I
Yes,
never
sir.
forgot that. I was so inspired. And then when we were working with La Quinta, which is one of our major corporate sponsors, we were having a host committee meeting in Dallas. And I knew Archimedes' story. And I'm like, "Archimedes, I got to have you come to Dallas. I want you to tell that story." And that's another life moment that I'll never forget. And I remember asking you, "How was your flight?" And you said it was really good. And you go, that's the first time I ever flew on a plane.
Okay.
And
Yes,
I
sir.
just thought how proud I was to know this man, that I got a front row seat to his journey. And now, as you've heard, his journey has taken him through the ranks of college academics to now he's an associate professor of animal science there in the University of Wisconsin at River Falls. And now you get to pour into the minds of young people and hopefully become a Tracy Cortez, maybe at a different level.
That's right. Yes, sir. I like to be a mentor like Mr. Cortez. Tracy has been, man, pivotal in my life, right? And it's just, I kind of find him as a second parent, to the point like he was in my wedding.
Hmm.
So he was part of my wedding. I felt like I needed a person that I felt like family and a friend that I could call on. And so I said, hey, I'm going to call him. I wonder if he's willing to be in my wedding. And he decided to do it. So I was so thankful for the opportunity. But, you, as a student and as a person in life, you need to find those mentors that stretch you, right? Those mentors that push you through the failures,
Mhm.
those mentors that assist you getting out of those failures and help you shape who you are. Those mentors that put you in leadership positions and those people that help you become a leader and help you uh, become a better communicator through the industry or to the individuals. And so just find them. They're out there. And my goal is to be one of them. Tracy was for me and I want to be for somebody else. And I hope that someday, like you mentioned before, someday we have a person saying, going through it to a podcast and saying, Archimedes did this for me. And so I wish somebody could say that for me at some point in life. And that would be the dream, right?
They will. They
Yes,
will.
sir.
You know, one of the other things that you and I have in common is that FFA jacket.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I tell people that that jacket was a game changer because when I put my jacket on and I zipped it up, you know, you didn't know that I came from a broken home. You didn't know that we were getting our dinner out of a garbage can or that I had a 14 on my ACT or $25 in my checking account. I looked just like everybody else. That meant that I had the same opportunities as everybody else. And I took advantage of those opportunities and ended up at Texas Tech University on 5 scholarships. And my education was paid for all because of that blue and gold jacket. I believe that jacket levels the playing field. You know, I like to tell people the jacket says, come here, let me just give you a hug, and here's an opportunity. And so the
That's
jacket,
right.
it does, it gives us a hug and it says, here's an opportunity. Now, you know, one of the things, Archimedes, that we got to tell young people is adults, our job is to create opportunities. Young people, your job is to determine the outcome.
That's correct.
Archimedes wasn't entitled to anything, but he took advantage of the opportunities that he had. And look at what he's accomplished. But Archimedes, go back in time and tell me, because I think there's a very interesting story around how you earned your FFA jacket.
Yeah, I guess, it's been a while. I guess my biggest takeaway from that jacket is that our alumni association of our local FFA chapter, they used to do a scholarship. And you had to work, you had to do little things here, there, and then eventually you apply and you were able to gain enough points. And I remember getting my jacket, and I don't know if Mr. Cortez or if it was the alumni that paid for it. I can't remember exactly. But I remember wearing the jacket home, and my dad thought I had stole it. And he told me to return and I was just mind blowing, and I couldn't remember at the time what did I tell him, but I just was like, this is mine. It has my name on it. It's embroidered. It's me. I promise. They gave it to me. And he couldn't believe me. And he said, we don't take anything.
Hmm.
Give it back. And I did it. And I wore it with, he understood that that was me. And I think I wore that jacket the full semester. And I never took it off. Maybe it should have been washed.
Now,
But
Archimedes,
yes, sir.
if I recall,
Yes, sir.
because of that moment in time with your family, that you actually used that to bring them to an FFA meeting.
I did, yes, because they wanted me to return it. That's
Yes.
right.
and they got to
Yes,
see that you earned it and what you were a part of.
that's right. Yes, sir. Yeah, they got to see me. I remember we went to the meeting, we got to sit around and they were like, "What are you guys doing?" And so, they were lost, right? They didn't understand it. And it was a little bit of language barrier, so that was a little translating here, there, and then through that process of then seeing us speak in front of the group and kind of lead the group into the meeting and just have discussion boards and figure out, plan ahead what we were going to do for the next, between the next meeting. My dad realized that, and my mom realized that organization was actually making me a better person. And then they stopped pestering me about it and they supported me ever since. Because after that, they were like, "Do you want to get chickens? We'll help you with the chickens." And so I got chickens so I could show poultry in our fair. That didn't go very well, but we tried.
Well, that's why you're
Yes, sir.
working with beef now.
That's right. Yes, that's right. That's why I switched.
Yeah.
Poultry was
Now,
not.
there's a lot of stories, Archimedes. I've been very fortunate to hear a lot of incredible stories. And I just want you to know that I think yours is one of my top three.
Oh, thank you. It
Uh,
means a lot. It's a lot.
it's inspiring. And I think the thing that I appreciate about your story is that nowhere along the way in your story have I ever sensed anything other than gratitude. From the very beginning, from the very first time I've met you, I've just never sensed anything other than gratitude. You were grateful for an opportunity. You were grateful for a chance to connect with people. You were grateful for a chance to excel academically, to excel with hard work, with work ethic. I mean, I just appreciate so much that, like I said, your journey is just checkered with gratefulness, and it shows.
I like to tell people that my journey is full of doors, and the doors are there for me to learn how to turn that knob and open them up, and to experience to see what's on the other side of the room. And if I don't feel like I'm not going to make a change, then there's another door where I can make a change, and hopefully, somebody's going to benefit from that change. Uh,
Let's talk about doors.
yes, sir.
I got to believe that maybe when you were at Colorado State, you might have run into some lady out there. She's known for talking about doors too, Dr. Temple Grandin.
Well, I could talk to you a little bit about that, and I think that you're going to find that story a little interesting. Thanks to Dr. Grandin, I was able to meet my wife. So Dr. Grandin gave my wife an opportunity to pursue her master's at Colorado State University. And her office, or the office for her students, was a little full. And she took an extra student than she probably would have, just because of the time and commitment that it takes to mentor a grad student. And she said, "Hey, I'm going to put them in your office." I remember this. She brought my wife, sat her next to me, and that was her office with her little cubicle space right next to me. And then we kind of didn't get along for a minute. And then eventually we realized that we needed to help each other out because we were all in the same struggle. And one thing led to the other. And we ended up becoming, a couple. And now we're married, have a beautiful 2.5-month-old daughter. So we're pretty excited about that. And Dr. Grandin has definitely been a friend of ours through the years. I know that we can call her anytime and she'll talk to us, mentor us, and guide us in things. And so she talks about opportunities. Every time I'd heard her speak, uh, the first time I heard her speak was at Texas A&M. She came in and I went to visit her with her and I went to shake her hand and be like, "Thanks for the great speech." And it was so nice to meet you. Finally meet you. You hear all those things, you watch the movie, but so finally nice to shake your hand. And she's a human just like you and I. So if you ever see her in person, go shake her hand.
Yeah.
Tell her thank you. She opens up to you and she's just an awesome person. And we talked for a few minutes and then she's like, "Hey, thanks for coming up. Thanks for reaching out. It's been great. You have a keen eye for animals," she said. "And one day you're going to be successful."
Mm-mm. Wow.
As I took that very, very,
Wow.
at the time, it was just kind of like, "Yeah, I know, who are you? How can you tell that I'm going to be this person?" But I was like, you know what?
Mm.
Maybe it's just her encouraging me to be a better person. And so that encouragement led me to pursuing this career. And so when I met her again, when I started my PhD, I told her about that. And she's like, "Yep, I remember. You were wearing a Corps Cadets uniform." And I said, "Yes, I was. How do you remember this?" But then I learned that she remembers everything.
Oh yeah.
She's smart.
We
And then,
we had her on the podcast. Yeah, she's been on
cool.
the podcast, and a good friend of mine is also a good friend of hers, Dr. Kevin Pine, uh,
Hmm.
WT. And
I can tell you what. So you mentioned one person there, Kevin Pond. He's been a he's been a friend of mine probably since I started Colorado State University, and you can ask him about me. I remember this. It was during the time that his parents were had just passed. I think his mom passed, and then his dad passed a few days right after, so it was pretty close. And he had a little farm in Fort Collins, Colorado, that needed some help picking up hay and doing other things. And we were at a reciprocal meat conference, and somebody said, "Hey, Dr. Pond needs help. Who's willing?" And I said, "I'll leave early. I'll go help, and I'll take care of the animals." We picked up the hay, and I noticed the farm needed some upkeep, some maintenance. And I went up to him when he came back from doing his family trips because of his parents. And I said, "Hey, your farm needs help. I want to take care of it. Would you trade me housing for work?" And he says, "I can do that. I have a small apartment in the barn. We can set it up." And I moved in, and I
well,
took care of his cattle. I fed his cattle, took care of the yard.
wow,
Ended up with the help of my dad, we remodeled some bathrooms in his house just because I was trying to help my dad, get jobs here or there when he came and visit. And so we have been really good friends ever since.
what a small world, isn't it? Yeah, he and Janice are friends of ours. His son Anson is
Hmm.
now working with Pilgrims. They're now one of our new corporate sponsors. And I don't
That's
know if
cool.
you recall or not, but when we did the first $1 million gift with Ford Motor Company, Ford made a television commercial that had two FFA kids in it. And one of those FFA kids was Anson Pine.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
cool.
it's amazing how, but when you were talking about doors, Dr. Grandin and I had this conversation, and Dr. Pond and I have had this conversation, and another good friend of ours is Gordon Davis, as you probably
Yes,
know,
sir.
GW. And anyway, when my oldest son was in fifth grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, somewhere in there, it was bring your dad to school day. What does your dad do? And I'm thinking, how am I going to explain to fourth graders and fifth graders what a development officer is? How do I explain to them that I'm a professional beggar? That I go ask for money and support and all this stuff. And so what I did was I went into the classroom and I went up to the whiteboard, and on the whiteboard I drew a little bitty door. And I asked the kids, I said, "How many of you could get through that door?" And they said, "No, sir." And then I drew a really big door. And I said, "Now, how many of y'all could get through that door?" And they said, "Yes, sir." I said, "That's what I do. I make doors bigger."
That's awesome.
I want more kids to have opportunities. I want more teachers to have opportunities. And so, Archimedes, when I hear your story, you understand now why it makes me so proud. It makes me proud to see a student of FFA, through the support of a teacher and mentors, accomplish so much in life, to be grateful for the opportunity, and then to capitalize on the opportunity and and have these incredible outcomes. And I just want you to know your stories, and like I said, is probably one of my more inspiring stories that I like to share with people. And I've told your story about the plane ride many times. I've told the story about that FFA jacket many times.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
and so just know that there's always somebody watching, and there's a lot of people that are very grateful for the success that you've had. I know that Tracy and his wife are, I guarantee you, and so many others. So let's try to pour some of that into everybody else. So I like to ask the kids, I don't know about Wisconsin, I'll just tell you about Texas. I asked the kids, I said, "How many high schools are in Texas?" And they'll say, "A lot." I say, "Yeah, there's a lot. There's over 3,000 high schools in the state of Texas." I said, now think about that, 3,000 high schools. How many of those 3,000 are going to have a graduating class this year? Every one of them. Think about that. They're all going to be getting out. All your college kids, by the way, guess what? Every university, every college that has a graduating class, guess what? Everybody's going to be out looking for a job, a scholarship, or an opportunity.
Mhm.
Everybody. So
Mhm.
the question then becomes, what's your competitive edge? What separates you from everybody else? Because if you're all going to be competing for attention, an opportunity, a scholarship, what's your competitive edge? And so, Archimedes, when I look at your success, I would ask you this question. If you could tell a high school kid, here are 3 tips to be successful, what would you tell them?
You need to be adaptable, first and foremost. You need to be able to communicate what your needs are and how you think you're going to achieve those needs. You need to have integrity. To me, those are the three top things to have. Agriculture industry is changing so fast. Technology is making things move at the speed of light.
Mm,
We need to be sustainable because we're losing ground to urbanization. Uh, Global trade, right? It's up one of the economical. How do I put this? But global trade is basically determining how much money we're going to make in our commodities. And so we need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to have confidence in our skills and our professionalism to be successful. And if we have those key points, we're going to be able to stand out and have an edge. And so
mm,
it's important for us to be able to do that, right? Not just the technical knowledge, but also the communication, the problem solving, and the leadership skills. All those are critical
mm,
components to be successful. And I think as a teacher, I play a vital role in opening those doors again. I play a vital role in making those students adaptable, have communication skills, have the ability to lead. Because in my job, I set them up for competitive judging teams.
mhm.
I make them go through competitions. I make them lead a group. Not just that, but I make them lead projects where they have to do speeches, they have to communicate. And my goal is to help them find their voice and their values. Mr. Cortez helped me do that, and I want to help that to my students. And if I can help them find their voice and their values, uh, I think that those students are going to be successful.
Yeah, if you remember, go back to your days in the ambassador room, there were 2 quotes that we had all around the walls. One, the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit.
That's right.
And number 2, when your values are clear, your choices are easy.
Yes, sir.
Listen to your story. Your value system, because of your value system, the choices that you've made in life have been very easy. Taking care of your family, trying to help others, stand up and advocate for the industry. Yeah, when you talked about changes in agriculture, I've got a presentation that I give called AI cubed. And the reason I did it was because, depending on who you talk to, if you come from our world and we say AI, we think of artificial insemination.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you come outside of our world, you say AI, you think of artificial intelligence. But I guarantee you there's one thing that we all have in common, and that's that we need more agricultural information.
That is true.
Because
Another way to look at it, yeah.
it's people that don't understand the scope of our food supply. They don't understand the international trade components. They don't understand
Mhm.
just even the regulations here in our own country. They
That's
don't
right.
understand the economics of thin margins that farmers and ranchers live by. I tell people farmers and ranchers are some of the smartest people I know because no one knows how to stretch their margins and gain margins better than people that are actually there farming and production agriculture. So there's a lot of real wisdom in what you just said. And should it be another podcast, we could probably have a whole discussion just on that topic alone.
Every time I talk about how I met you and the stories that I have learned gone through the years, I've always talked about the flight that you purchased for me that I flew to Dallas, and I talked about that. And there's only so much we can do as educators. There's only so many opportunities we can offer. And to me, I look at you talked about you being a professional beggar, right? Just a little while ago. And that made me think of something that because of people like you, we have sponsors. Because of people like you, we have people that donate to the growth and success of the youth. There are people that do scholarships, individuals that open up those doors, so that make the doors bigger or assist you to make those doors bigger. And without their support, this wouldn't be possible. And so we need their support for us to be able to have more opportunities. We need to provide better resources, travel, exposure to different things so our students understand what the industry is all about, and so they can meet and interact with industry leaders. When you meet and interact with industry leaders, it gives you
Mm,
the sense of saying, I one day want to be like that person.
mm. Wow.
And so to me that's super super important. And so if donors are going to be hearing this podcast, I hope that they understand that their dollars were well spent, at least in my part. And I hope that a lot of other students that have been able to get a support through those um, also are using them very well. And hopefully that this helps.
Thank you so much for saying that, because let me tell you something. Let me just capitalize on what Archimedes just said. I tell people all the time that at the end of every dollar, think about what I just said. At the end of every dollar, there is an opportunity for a kid or an opportunity for a teacher.
That's right.
You and I are recording this in May 2025. And in May 2025, Texas FFA members, Texas agricultural science teachers, have access to more scholarships, more leadership development, and more professional networks than ever in our history. We're almost 100 years old, and we have more today than we've ever had. And the most important thing is what Archimedes just expressed, and that is gratitude. We're not entitled to any of those dollars. Those sponsors could give to so many incredible causes. I'm just so thankful that I'm in a position where I get to share with them stories like Archimedes. I get to say, this is what happens when you support our kids. And as a result, Archimedes, you and I are making that door bigger for the people that are going to
That's always the goal.
they're going to follow in
That's
our
always the goal.
footsteps. And they're going to say that one day. They're going to say, Archimedes, I heard his story. And if he can do it, I can do it.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So, all right. Well, let's wrap this up. You get one fun question.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
I want to know, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
What's the best concert I've ever been to? Oh man, that's a good one. It's probably got to be so right now probably Cody Johnson.
Cody
I went to one of
Johnson.
his concerts. Yeah, Cody Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, some I guess I'm going to say something back to that and just to add it on to it. Every time he has a concert, he stops in the middle of the concert and says, "I want to give thanks to our veterans. I want to give thanks to our first responders." And he goes through this whole spiel, and he builds so much pride around that.
Mm,
And so when he
mm,
does that, I'm a local volunteer firefighter because I want to give back to that community, right? I took from that community. I want to give back to the community as much as I can, and I want to do it tenfold. And so when he says those things, he brings the community together. And when you speak at events, I feel like you're like the Cody Johnson. You bring the community together, right? And so
mm, mm.
to me, that's a good concert. Yes,
Boy,
sir.
that's good. That was really good. I'm trying to get him on this podcast. So if I ever get him on here, I'm going to tell him he's got to watch this podcast,
There you go.
because that was powerful. And I agree with you, by the way. I appreciate the fact that he expresses that gratitude. Again, that's why we start this podcast off with, what are you grateful for today?
That's
Because
right.
like you said, I believe it becomes something that you can rally around,
Hmm.
that you can build on. So thank you so much for sharing that. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I could just keep talking to Archimedes all day long. Again, I got to see him as a high school kid. I watched him go through Texas A&M University and put on that Corps Cadet uniform. I watched him pursue his master's and his doctoral. I get to see through social media. That's the reason why I like social media. I get to see him start his beautiful family. I get to see these doors of opportunity that are opening up for him. But more importantly, I get to hear somebody who's very passionate about giving it back. And we stand on the shoulders, every one of us, we stand on the shoulders of the people that went before us. And the
Yeah, so
essence, go back to what we said, the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. Archimedes, there's no question, none whatsoever, that you are going to inspire, encourage, equip somebody in your classroom that you will never know that they're going to pass that on to somebody else. And it could be that person that changes the world. It could be that person that becomes your daughter's mentor or
that's
president
right.
or doctor or lawyer or elected official. That is the beauty of having a grateful heart, of trying to encourage, equip, and empower others. And I'm just thankful that for you and I, it was because we found FFA. We were able to get into that jacket.
That's right.
We were able to determine an outcome of an opportunity that we were given. And we're not done. So somebody asked me the other day, of course, I've been at this a long time, 25 years, and they're like, well, Aaron, are you about done? Are you going to retire? And I said, no, I'm not going to ease up, let up, shut up, or give up until I'm taken up. I said, I'm just kind of
Right.
getting warmed up. So
There you go. There you go. Yes, sir.
just keep going.
That's all you got to do, right? Take opportunities. Take the opportunities. Never say no, and move forward. And do what's right, even when it's hard, because it matters.
That's how we're going to close today's show right there. That was it. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, thank you for stopping by. You know, when we look at life, it's only one thing we can do with our time, and that is spend it. So we appreciate you spending a little of your time with us today. We appreciate the opportunity to bring the Growing Our Future podcast to listeners worldwide. But I'm really appreciative when we bring guests on like Archimedes. Again, God gave me a gift, and that gift is a front row seat to this man's life. And I'm so grateful for what the organization has done, for what the teachers have done, for what mentors have done. And I'm also grateful that you were willing to come on and share. So thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody else, here's what we're going to do. I want you to go out and do something great for somebody. Encourage them, equip them, empower them. You're going to feel good about it. And guess what? Just like Archimedes said, because you do, you're going to make this world a better place to live, work, and raise our families. So until
That's
we
right.
meet again, everybody go out, plant great seeds, and grow an incredible future. Thank you.